last song is a great introduction to what I want to talk about. Lest I forget thy agony, lest I forget Gethsemane. There's a certain stereotypes. One of them, for example, is that people should dress formally to go to church because, what happens? What would happen if I don't know, president or queen showed up? Wouldn't you dress properly for that occasion, right? Well, then what if Jesus comes to in our midst, and therefore we should be formally dressed? All right. So that's one of those stereotypes, which I don't think is necessarily that bad. But we dress formally primarily because of one another. You don't come to pajamas to church, right? So you kind of dress yourself because you care for other people. Now, we don't have a dress code here that, in fact, seems like I'm the only one with a tie here. So, you will not wear a tie, fine. You don't, that's also right. But, so I don't want to talk about that. But there is another modern stereotype, and that is we need to be happy. All right? We need to be happy. You need to, and sometimes people come to church and you have like a half an hour, sometimes an hour, sort of a hyping up time where there's a lot of song and dancing and it's all happy and so on. I don't like it, right? Because to be honest with you, sometimes there is and of course we just learned lately. Somebody wrote a book. That a sad song is bad or whatever, like a mellow song or whatever is not right. I don't like it. The fact is that sometimes we feel quite miserable. All right, we feel miserable, and when we read Ecclesiastes chapter 2, it's like right? It's heavy, it's not pleasant, and it's. But that's what it is sometimes. And I want to talk about today about the days I hate my life. I was like, ooh, hey, it's not my words, right? Solomon, the wisest man ever lived, had that experience. I hated my life. I hated my labor, and you can see the person is just depressed and in some kind of despair. And I have to confess to you that there are days I literally hate my life. And the Bible says that the day when you die is better than the day when you're born. I get it sometimes. Sometimes, and I want to be honest, I don't want to hear, put on some artificial smile and just be happy. The fact is that sometimes life sucks. All right, I want to talk about it today. Needs to be addressed. Now people will say, well, there are people that are quite happy all the time. And, like some of these prosperity preachers, you go to a bookstore and just about all of them they must go to a dentist for 2 months, for proper cleaning. And then they show up, and of course it's all cleaned up in a studio then, right? In a Photoshop or something, and then they put it, and so you go there, and you go to a bookstore, you go to a section of some philosophers, and they typically will be serious people, serious faces, right? But then you go to Christian section, everybody smiles. And it's weird. Why? Everybody's, T.D. Jakes and Joyce Myers and Joel Osteen especially, right? And him and his wife, they always smile. And I think we live in a days where smile is a little bit overrated. All right? And it doesn't come natural. Because there is somehow this law that nobody wrote down, but that somehow we ought to be happy. You got to be positive, right? The positive thinking and all that stuff. Well, I don't think it's honest. The reality, even for all these prosperity preachers, including Joel Osteen, they get depressed. They are not happy all the time. It's a lie. It's just a veneer. And I want to talk about why this is important to acknowledge, and actually that there is actually benefit in despair. There is actually benefit in pain. That's another thing. No pain today, right? Let's find any kind of thing, but let's just not have a pain. And if you see a person, and the person, let's say lost loved one, child is lost, whatever, then okay, we're sad, but okay, if it's going for too long, let's say 2 weeks, you're still sad, then we need to cure it. It's almost like a disease or something. Give you pills and all kinds of junk. Pain has a purpose in life. And nobody likes pain, but that's another thing that we have to acknowledge. There is pain. Let's be honest. There's days, there's events that you wish that never happened. And we are not made for this, though. God, when He made us perfect, obviously He didn't make us so that we suffer these kind of things. The suffering of mankind is a result of sin. And so a lot of things that we experience, including what Solomon explained and expressed in Ecclesiastes, is just a phenomenon of a corrupted human condition. That we deal with sad days, with depression and despair. Now, some people may struggle more than that. You have people that are very melancholic, where you have some people that tend to be more happy. I think that seems to be happening, and so that's just because you may be a person that tend to be more happy and positive. You should not look down on another person that may be a little bit different kind and is more up and down, and try to cure that person. You've been given a certain set of hormones and certain things, and it's just the way it is. Sometimes, obviously, people go through period that is not pleasant. If ladies go through their periods, they're not happy. If when a woman gets pregnant, then she goes through moods and stuff like that. Now, those are all. And of course, if there is stress at work and all kinds of things, those are all things that lead to stress and to trouble. And if it's sustained, and if it becomes chronic, then you can reach it to a point where you just want to give up or something. You have that attitude. Why am I even living? What is this all about? To that point, right? Now, we hear stories like story of Joseph and David and so on. And these people grow up. Let's say, think about Joseph. Joseph as a teenager, young teenager, he goes around and he experienced hatred by his brethren. And then to a point that actually he realized they want to kill him. Now, I don't know if you ever experienced that somebody... you actually have a serious possibility that you're gonna be killed by your close to brother, your brother. I never had that. I did get in a situation where I realized, okay, I'm surrounded. I'm gonna be beaten. All right, when I was a kid, by some thugs, and I did get beaten, and I knew it was coming, and it's not pleasant. But I didn't think I'm gonna die. All right, I just knew that okay, I'm in trouble. And it's not a good place. You should not be ever in that place, but that's sometimes what happens. And what if you get into a situation where you're gonna be killed? That's a serious option. I was wondering if Joseph ever kind of recovered from that. It's kind of, and even his brethren, they kind of know. I'm sure he remembers that he's gonna pay us back, right? That's obviously something we shouldn't have to go through, and some people have. Of course, things like this and many other reasons can lead to trauma. That's an experience that makes you sick and very anxious, perhaps, and so on. And you have here a situation that are afraid and traumatized, even to a point of despair. And because they could potentially lose their life. This leads sometimes to depression and unhappiness. And you know what? Sometimes if it goes way too far, even to a point that people actually end their life. All right? Suicide. And I don't want to just talk about suicide, but suicide is part of this. There's a different reasons why people commit suicide, but one of them is despair. When people get to the edge of an abyss and they just feel like there is no other way to go, and there is always a way to go. And I think sometimes this is spiritual in nature. The devil wants us killed. So sometimes one way he may do it is that he takes people to the edge and say, okay, there's no point, nobody cares, there's no purpose of this, let's just die. So sometimes it's important to acknowledge that sometimes people hate life, and I have to say that there's times I hate my life, you know. But then there's things that make it different, that shift the focus on yourself and on the pity and the despair to something positive. And that sometimes can enlighten the things. Sometimes children can be that. You know, children are so selfless in some ways, and they just go and they jump on you, and there's this joy. That itself probably revitalizes a person, right? But sometimes that's what it is. Now, life doesn't have to be a misery, though. All right? In fact, Bible teaches us that you can have a good life. All right? You can have a life that you can be happy in. All right? Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a problem in your life, but it doesn't have to be this despair and this life of depression. Some of these situations come about at our own wrongdoing. And so we should not be surprised that we feel the way we feel, because we kind of ask for it. But the Bible tells us that we can have a good life. In fact, a lot of things in the Bible that God gives us, He gives it to us so that we don't have to be despairing and traumatized. That's why a lot of stuff in the Bible, people are, the commandments, they're legalistic. Commandments are good for you. You know, it's an instruction manual how to live your life to be happy, to have a good life, to enjoy it. All right, and a lot of things obviously come, and you don't necessarily ask for it. They just come and they will make you depressed. We'll talk about some of those examples. But there's a lot of things you can do to actually make your life quite a pleasant experience. All right. Now, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, we read this. Finally, 1 Peter chapter 3. Finally, be all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. Verse 9. Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers, but the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. So there is an instruction by Apostle Peter here, says, hey, you want to have a good life? This is what you do. You know, watch your tongue, be righteous, don't do evil things, separate yourself from wickedness, and so on. Then, of course, one of the 10 commandments, 10 commandments are the key commandments, right? It's the most important commandments. And one of them is honor. Of course, it's a commandment. All of them are for your good. But one of them is honor your mother and father. And that thy days may be long. It's the first commandment with a promise, we are told, right? If you do this, then your may days be long. And that's obviously supposed to be a blessing. It's not when you live in misery, it's just going to be more misery, right? The point of that is that you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be better. See, and it starts with even a child. You know, honor your mom and dad, and God will give you a better life. All right, that's what it says. Now, don't we want to have a better life? So if you want to have a better life, then take it seriously what you're told. Take it seriously and apply it to your life. Even though you may not like it, just really live by it. And overcome yourself and really love the commandments. Even though they may sound, I don't know, politically incorrect, whatever. The world can go nuts. You know, we have truth, and we have a perfect compass that will not only make us survive, but actually make us having good life, right? And of course, in some of these churches that they preach happiness and all that stuff, a lot of the stuff is supposed to just land on you by some kind of, spirit comes, just makes you happy. Live in victory or something. Like just live in victory and just, fall backwards and just never struggle with any issues, whether it's a physical problem or financial problems or emotional problems. And if, of course, in those circles, if you do show some negative emotions, they will try to heal you, cast out the devil of depression or something nonsense like that. Why don't you just preach the law too, Mr. Pentecostal, right? Why don't you preach, stop fooling around with a strange woman, stop doing these things, and you'll be happy. The problem with sin, it promises it makes you happy. It's a lie. It's a trap. The fact is that actually sin will lead to depression if you stay in it. Sin will lead to despair and to guilt, and all kinds of other problems come with it. Like maybe diseases and all kinds of trouble. That's almost like secondary. I think the guilt is a big one. When you've done wrong and it's there and it never goes away, and you feel miserable. So let's talk about God encouragement and I'm always with you and that sort of thing. But you know what? One way God does teach us good things is that He takes us to His instruction manual. He said, "This is how you live, and if you do that, you will have a happy life. You will be better off." Now, why do people get depressed? You know what? Sometimes it's just life hits, all right? Just life gets miserable. Sometimes you have frustration after frustration. You've tried so many things and the problem doesn't go away until to a point that you just like, I don't know what to do. And if on top of that you have, let's say, 2 more events, sometimes it's like avalanche, right? Is that the one flake that comes and just the whole thing comes down, right? So sometimes there may be an underlying big problem. Let's say you have a problem with a child or something like that. And then to it comes maybe you get a ticket for speeding or something like that, all right? And then on top of that, you go and spill a coffee. And it could be something silly like that, and it just takes you down the tube, and you just, okay, and it's just too much. It's just too much. And then people see you, oh, what's his problem? It's just the coffee. Now, you don't understand. There's an underlying problem, right? Midlife crisis. I think it's a serious thing. The other day, like 2 years ago or something, I just felt bad, but I didn't quite, didn't register. I felt bad, but it's not like I consciously say, I feel bad. I just felt bad, and then I said, I feel bad. And that kind of helped me. Oh, that's what it is, I feel miserable because I feel bad. And then I'm thinking, hey, I'm 46. I was 46 2 years ago. I was thinking, maybe, is this the middle? And so I had to Google, what are the symptoms of middle-age crisis? And it's like, my goodness, that's it. That's what it is. Okay. And I don't know. I don't know if it's a real thing, but I felt bad. What happens? Getting older. You used to be athletic. You used to climb a mountain. And now, you're breathing heavily. And, it's difficult to bend. And you have aches in your body. Life is sort of slipping through your fingers. You have still so many grandiose plans, and you start to think, am I even going to be able to accomplish all these things? And sometimes people, they have great ideas and great ambitions when they're young and they're starting their life, and we're going to do all these great things, and then life is almost halfway through, and you're thinking, we're still where we are. In fact, we are better off, worse off than when we started, or something. Like, people can be financially ruined, right? You can have marriage in turmoil, trouble with kids, trouble with the economy, losing job, or who knows what can happen. And it just feels, what was that about? All right? I used to work in a company, and then when I left, later on I learned about it. There was a guy that had Parkinson's, and so he was slowly deteriorating and starting to shake and so on. And he had a marriage and all that stuff. But in like a, they told him, okay, you have 1 year to live or something in the end. And he went completely nuts. He left his wife, he took all the money that they had, he sold everything and started living with prostitutes. And he's like, Joe did that? You know, like Joe was such a nice guy, kind of, you know. And then he did this and he's like, I see a man despair. You know, people may see a wicked man. Yeah, that is a wicked thing. But I see a depressed guy. You know, I see a guy that starts to panic. You know, it's over. And I haven't quite experienced all the pleasure that I was looking for. So I'm going to... And you know what? I bet you that if that man was depressed and therefore he sold his property and started living like a crook, after he spent it all, I think he must have felt terrible. Because now it's all gone, you just destroyed all your legacy, and you still feel bad. In fact, you probably feel worse. On top of this junk, and your credibility is gone, and so on. Why do people do such a thing? And of course, sin. Sin, I will do that, I already mentioned. You know, you got guilt, you got... there's obviously consequences that come with the sin that will only pile up on top of the trouble that you have. And of course, sin does that big time. All right? Sometimes people get depressed because they are spoiled. Life gets too complex. You got all kinds of things. You got everything. And there is no lack of just about anything. And you're looking for something and you already have all those things and you're still not fulfilled. You know, like that song from U2, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for, right? That is, that's very futile. That's vanity. That's depressive, all right? Of course, we read from Solomon. Solomon was that kind of a kid. He had everything he wanted. God gave him a great riches. He gave him great wisdom. He never had to fight a war. He had tons of women, and of course, he picked the best of the crop, quote unquote, you know, and so he had any woman he could wish for, and then you read it, and he's just a depressed person, right? Vanity, it's emptiness, it's vanity, you know, and you see this empty soul there. And so sometimes these people, they miss sort of a lack of purpose. Now there's other things that can contribute to that, you know, like a diet and lifestyle. People are sedentary. If they don't exercise, if you eat junk, they will probably contribute to depression and to bad feelings and so on. Environment can be tough, you know. If you live in a place which is gray, no green space, bad air, you go to office, you have no windows, you know, some people have that. That may be nasty. So, you know, even today, people realize that if you want to create environment of creativity and good performance, you want to create a good office space. You know, maybe a quiet music, maybe a little fountain somewhere in the background. Kind of make it a little bit quiet, but not completely quiet. They actually create these artificial sounds that actually they realize they're kind of, like tinkling over water, stuff like that. And they realize that the performance of people goes high. People are more happy. You know, years ago when I was studying MBA, they told us that what motivates people to do a great job. And then there is factors that demotivate people to do a good job. And you'd be surprised, they're not the same. Things that motivate people to do a good job are different than things that demotivate. And actually, for example, people would think, well, money motivates people to do a good job. Actually, no. In average, money does not motivate people to do a good job. But if it's bad, it will demotivate them. But if it's great, you know, the difference between 10 grand and 15 grand in terms of happiness and so on, it really doesn't make that much difference. All right? But let's say good relationships and good environment, that you're looking forward to go to job, that actually makes you perform better, you know? And it's actually cheaper than to raise somebody's salary. And yet people will not do that. It will be cheap on that and give people terrible cubicles and stressful environment, like it's somehow good. And of course, loneliness. You know, people are very lonely. Lack of community. Lack of fellowship. Lack of friendship. How many people, because of their poor choices, they ended up being alone, raising kids alone. And obviously, we want to help and let's get back on track. But it's obviously now a mess. It's not very fun. And the Bible says, also in Ecclesiastes, this is what Solomon says, two are better than one. The effect of being one is obviously bad. Because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth. For he has not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And even God, when he created Adam, he realized he's alone. It's not good that man would be alone. So let's give him a wife. I think a Christian is not good for a Christian to be alone. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of options for Christians out there to find. Yeah, they may find relationships in some places, but with that they have to suck up also all kinds of nonsense doctrine. So in that case, I'd rather be alone. But I don't want to be alone. That's not fun. So yeah, life is there's a lot of misery, much emptiness. Emptiness is what I have experienced with when you're staring. When the world offers certain glitter and certain things, and then you go that direction, and then you only find out it's just a deep, empty hole. There's nothing there, and it makes you so what's the word? You're just surprised for one, and second, terribly disillusioned. It's like wow. And I actually appreciate when we come to a point where we're disillusioned. It's better because there's a lesson that can be learned from that. Well, that was empty. What we were chasing, that was actually empty. All right. Now, what is pathetic and ironic is that there is people that are on that train going to the empty hole, and they see it somehow. They see it and they realize, this is so futile. They will write songs about it. They make jokes about it. There's like there was a rock star. His name was Frank Zappa. All right, I don't know if you know the name, but he was very popular in Europe. And our former president, he was a big fan of him, so that's how I know the name. I listened to his songs. It's just a junk. All right, but he was in some ways honest. He was actually bringing things that were a problem of the day. But of course, using very filthy language to a point that he was not really much played in America because of his terrible language. There is a guy like a George Carlin. He's also dead, and he hated God. He hated religion, but he hit on a lot of things that the society was corrupt. The corruption of the society. How you are being basically just milked for cash by all these corporations and malls and everything, But I can't listen to the guy because he's such a dirtbag. All right? And so it's so futile. These guys, they're exposing the emptiness. They themselves are leading everybody to emptiness, just in, in different areas. And that makes me depressed almost to think about it. Like, where do you go? That is depressing. Of course, people are running after so many things and chasing glitter and chasing all kinds of stuff. That leads to emptiness. When you have it all one day and you realize you're still empty, that makes people depressed. That is a terrible place to be. And 1 Timothy in chapter 6, that's a little bit of a light here. This is if somebody is on the path of depression for reasons like chasing glitter and money and fame and glory, if somebody is on that train, and of course this is their prosperity gospel, takes advantage of this human desire for fame, glory, and happiness and all these things. They go there and they offer it to people even though they can't. But they sell this veneer, and if they pump up the people and then they create these fake miracles and all this stuff, it's terrible what they do. But this is the answer. 1 Timothy chapter 6. You need to get out of that. You need to get out. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment, to be happy with what you have. All right? For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. How basic, elemental wisdom. Like, what are you looking for? What are you chasing? You're going to have to leave it here anyway. So clear and basic. And yet we need to be told. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and snare. The word will means that they want to. All right? Those that want to be rich, those that make it their goal and desire, and they think about it all the time. Oh, how can I be rich? How can I be successful? How can I make money? You are falling into many temptations and a snare. Snare is a trap. And into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. And so all these prosperity preachers, how they go and they say, you give 500, God will send you 5,000. And then they have testimonies of these, like Peter Popov and all these guys. They have testimonies how, the lady crying, I just trusted your Reverend Popov, and I gave $1,000 to them. And he's like 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks, I got a check from the government for $50,000. And of course, you see people hanging on TV sets or in that place, and saliva's dropping down. I want that too. So, and then they started giving money. That's the snare. That's the whole point of this, to give me money. And you're not getting a check. You're not getting one. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Quite a strong statement. Very definitive. Love of money is the root of all evil, which will some coveted after they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through many, many sorrows. This is the hole. This is the emptiness. This is the sorrow. It's very tempting, and of course, especially in the West, where success is glorified, we name streets after people that are successful that way, whether it's a hockey, like a Gretzky or somebody, or whether it's an Olympic winner, or this and that, somebody famous always, eh? And we name streets, and we worship them. It's like, no, it's just normal guys, and often they're losers. They may have succeeded in some discipline, but you wouldn't want to be married to them. Think Einstein was a great guy? Einstein was a crook and probably a pedophile. Who else? I often, it's just so sad. There's just so many people that worship. I just lately learned a little bit about some rock stars. And for example, there is one band called Mamas and Papas. You remember those? This is big famous in the hippie era. And I'm not that old. It was kind of, anyway, but what they came up with was this idea, one of the members, she was actually fairly large. She was very big. And of course, in that era, you wanted to be cool looking. And they kind of came in, and Mamas and Papas, 2 guys and 2 girls, and they sang these songs, and they kind of, I think, got their fame and glory because of the perception they're kind of folksy and just a nice folks, not a big deal, not like Beatles, all the veneer and glory. Well, but then you look behind the scenes, and they were complete losers. There was adultery going on. The girl slept with the best friend of her husband, and it's just sad. When you look at all these famous people, Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley, people look up to them, how successful they are, but they commit suicides. They don't know what to do with their life. They're miserable. It's sad. Now, this phenomenon of smiling Christians, like I mentioned at the beginning, the Joel Osteen, I have a book, somebody gave me a book to dump it, but I didn't dump it, I still have it there. It's more of a warning to me. Of course he has this smile, and you know what, when I look at his smile, I guess the point is, hey, come on, you can live a victorious life. You can be happy. There's a great tomorrow for you. These self-helping books and kind of, but actually, I'll tell you this, it makes me more depressed. I think it does. I think it actually has that effect, doesn't it? Right? And I was, so I actually lately went through, I was kind of down. And not because just few things, but also seeing certain things out there. And sometimes it just goes and it just hits me. And I recommend, if you're depressed, just go get a good sleep, okay? Which is what I try to do. That sometimes doesn't help when you're tired and so on, and when your mind is busy. And sometimes knowledge makes you depressed, knowing all this junk. It's like, yeah, it's better not to even know. You know what actually lifted me up? I said, hey, let's read Ecclesiastes. This is probably, if you have a jolly day, you're probably not going to go to Ecclesiastes. But I was thinking, I wonder what is it going to do to me? And you know what? It was like a water on a dry ground. It was so good. It was actually encouraging. It was cool. So I went through it. I went through it several times. It's so great. I enjoyed it. Why? Why is it? Where is that depressive book in a bookstore? Fig Tree or something like that. Where is it? It's always these smiling guys. Where is the Ecclesiastes? It's buried in a Bible there somewhere on a shelf. But it's true, because God shows us the truth in the Bible. And isn't one of the consolations when somebody actually tells you finally the truth? And you know actually what it is. Where all these Joel Osteens out there, they're really lying to you. They're telling you something that's not true. And you may get encouraged if you are new to it, because it gives you hope. Oh, maybe that's what I have to do. So you start reading it. But then you keep reading it and it doesn't make you happy. Then next time you come to the store, you see smiling Osteen, then, it's like, not again, right? It's like when you have to eat a certain vegetable all the time. And then when you see it for the 1,000th time, it's like, oh, I can't even look at it anymore, right? Now, emptiness, and I think Bible uses the word vanity, that's similar to that. Emptiness and chasing vanity is the path to depression. And eventually is the path to suicide. I want us to understand that. That is the path. And we already talked about chasing money and glory and fame is emptiness. And that will lead to those feelings, to those dark moments. I remember when I was a younger person, I always wanted to be where the action was, And I remember I just wanted to go and get out there, like that's where the party is. Not necessarily the party, but that's where the action was. I wanted to be part of it. And then you are there, and then it's over, and you're still thinking, when is it going to start? But it never starts. I was chasing something that was not there. I was thinking about French Revolution, for example. French Revolution, a lot of young people had a lot of ambition. The musical Les Miserables, right? The work by Victor Hugo. Les Miserables, the idea is just there's this hope. We're gonna change the world. We're gonna make it great. And it was like, and then of course you have that sad part: empty chairs at empty tables. What is this all about? It's just empty. Literally empty chairs and empty tables. Another guy, John Denver. You like John Denver? You don't like him? No? I kind of like his songs. Some of the, what is it, like West Virginia Mountain Mama. That's a nice song, that made him a little bit famous, and so on. Again, young guy, kind of folksy, not like the stars from Nashville or something. No, he comes from like Montana or somewhere there, Colorado, and he's just this nice guy, But he suffered with depression. He was on drugs. He was unfaithful to his wife. And then he, not the greatest relationship with his father. Then it kind of improved when he started flying, and then he crashed and he died. And it's just sad. It's just, what was that about? Makes me depressed. So all these different people, all these, heroes and celebrities, all that stuff, All flesh is as grass, and so are they, and so honestly are all of us. It's good to appreciate the fact that we are here, and we make a bit of a something, and then we're gone. And that's the reality of it. That may sound depressive, but that is the truth. All flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away. And of course, then it says, but the word of the Lord lasteth forever, right? That's what lasts. That's where our attention needs to be, away from whatever explosion we can make in this world. You know, we make such a huge impact, and people are so concerned about their legacy. And you know, all these wicked presidents, you know, they do their thing, and then they build libraries, and you know, and statues are built for their honor and all this stuff. It's futile. It's empty. It's nothing. Nobody cares. Everybody cares for themselves. And then, of course, here's another thing. These people, then they try to sell accomplishments, something great. They sell it to the public, right? You know, you have a guys, you know, like there's a celebrity in TV, Jay Leno, he's retired. You know, he has a whole garage with tons of different cars and all these unique species and all this stuff. You know, there's other people that do that. And, you know, there's, you know, the Bee Gees band. You know, all the brethren are dead, so the only one is still alive is Barry Gibbs, the oldest one. And so I noticed this YouTube video, you know, how he lives. You know, so he's got fancy cars, and you know, he's dressed fancily. I feel sorry for you, Barry Gibbs. You know, that's what I did. It's futile, isn't it? And then, of course, these people, they go and they become I don't know, attaché or diplomats for United Nations, for AIDS and refugee program, and then UNICEF and all these, you know, like I look up all the celebrities that are somehow from Hollywood that are connected with United Nations. Angelina Jolie, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's champion for the climate change. George Clooney, right? Priyanka Chopra, there's this Indian guy, he's like some kind of new age guru, so his daughter, I guess. Anna Hathaway, Kate Blanchett, David Beckham, that's a soccer player, his wife Victoria Beckham, Emma Watson, Katy Perry, you know, the wicked singer, Nicole Kidman, and a few others. And they do great things, and they go to Africa and they take pictures with poor kids or something like that. And I'm thinking, why do you guys do that? What is it? Do you really care for the world? Maybe. But I suspect, highly suspect, that they are trying to fill that big hole in their life. And they try to do it with some great cause or something like that. You know, but it's a giant hole that you're not going to fill. And then they go around and they take all the glory, and because they do such a wonderful thing. It's useless. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. So it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Now, there is some depressed characters in the Bible, all right? Quite a few, actually. And I kind of put them in certain categories, all right? I got, 6, 7 of them. Now, one of them is calamity, loss, or some kind of tragedy. You know, that obviously will lead, if you lose everything. I remember, I think we were still in Ontario. There was a couple that moved from Niagara Peninsula, and they moved somewhere closer to Ottawa or somewhere there. And so the guy was in Ottawa. He was kind of checking the place and kind of arranging for things so that they can move, while the wife stayed back. They were like in Beamsville or somewhere there. And she stayed back with, I think, their 7 children. And the house caught fire, and they all burned. They all died that night, you know. And they were a Christian family. And it was terrible. It was... You know, what do you do? What do you do when that happens? Of course, you know that happened to Job. All right? Job, and you know what was the reaction? Job's wife says, why do you still retain thy integrity? Curse God and die. That's not a wicked person. That's not a good thought. But that's not a wicked person. That's a depressed person. That's a person that's at the bottom somewhere. All right? Job says, in chapter 3, Job 3, after this opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spake and said, let the day perish where I was born. Verse 11, why die not I from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? That's a depressed person. That's a person that is very deep somewhere. And I want to tell us, maybe this is not a problem for any of us here. I suspect it is not, because you all seems to be pretty jolly. But there is people that even today are suffering with a deep hole somewhere, and they're right here, where Job was. What am I living for? And be careful, because sometimes these people, they go around and they put on a smile, and you don't even see it. But they're there. And so I want to tell to us, first of all, notice that. And second, if you ever are that person, I want to tell you there is a way out. This will not last. There's a way out. There's a way out. But it's got to be the right way. Because if there's people chasing certain ways, and they're making things worse. Jacob, if when Pharaoh asked Jacob, how old is he and how is he doing? This is what he answers. The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been. You may have not noticed that about Jacob, because he never kind of speaks up like this. You just see the story. But when you go back, you can see the struggle with his brother. You can see that his father favors his brother, not him. You can see that he runs away for his life. You can see that he's cheated by Laban. You can see that his kids are fighting for life. They even are just about to murder their brother. You can see what they did to this nation when they trapped them and killed them all because of the fornication against the daughter, Dinah. And so you have all these things. And when you consider that, you think, you know what, I get that. That was not a fun life. Be honest, like that's not. You compare to, let's say, I don't know, Ruth. Maybe difficult beginning, but hey, the end sounds quite pretty good. All right, and so on. So that's one category: calamity, loss, tragedy. That obviously comes at you. You didn't ask for it. It's not because of your sin. Now the another one is persecution. That's a similar category. You don't deserve it, and people can become even to a point that they would rather die. Now the greatest example of that, I think of Elijah. Remember Elijah? He was frustrated with the false teachers, with Jezebel, and he preached against it, and he taught people, and he did great things, and so on. And finally, he's got his great opportunity, and he brings everybody there, and he says, look, let's just prove it. Let's take all these 400 worshippers of Baal, let them do their miracle, and then I'll do the miracle, and you judge for yourself. All right, judge for yourself. And it was such a display of fakery there. And the guys could not do anything. And he mocks them. And then he pours out the water over the sacrifice. And he makes it impossible to work. And yet, it just goes into fire. And people looked at it. It's like stared at it. It's like, wow. And then he says, let's start a reform. Let's get rid of these guys. So they all slaughtered all these false, wicked prophets. That same night, he's running for his life. I think that's the frustration. That's the discouragement. You almost thought, hey, now we will all start building a new place. We'll start again. Only to run for your life. And so he runs away for her life, and then he says, he went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, it is enough, O Lord, take my life. I don't think this is a necessarily suicidal thought. All right, he's not killing himself, but he doesn't want to live anymore. He hates his life. It's a real thing that people struggle with. Perhaps we don't struggle with it today, but it is there, and I want you to know that God has an answer to it. And in his case, God came and gave him food and let him rest a little bit. And actually, it's interesting. Actually, did you consider the fact that Elijah, he's the one that asks to die, and he's the only person, except for Enoch, that never died. That's kind of interesting, God is a good God. He knows what we are going through. you know. And other people, John the Baptist, how do you think he felt? How do you think James felt when he just went through a great university, 3 years with Jesus, and he just get arrested and they kill him? You know, right at the beginning. Didn't accomplish much. You know, that will make you depressed. You know, what is this about? And many people suffer like this. Now, I already mentioned that what leads to this emptiness and darkness is sin, and also abundance of things. You know, Moses actually had plenty of things, and he decided, I'm going to get out of this. The Bible says that he'd rather choose affliction and so on with his people than to live in sin in Egypt. What sin we're talking about? You know, all this abundance and everything. You know, because I don't think you can have abundance and not sin. If people chase parties and you know, all these Hollywood stars and other people, if they have tons of money and they can have anything they want, you just guarantee that they're going to have sin. You know, the Job had to pray for his children every time they had a party. Because, people that have less, they have less opportunity to sin in some grand way. All right? But if you obviously, you know, if I give my children a cell phone and leave them alone, and, you know, of course they're going to get into junk. They will, right? It's guaranteed. I already mentioned frustration sometimes, right? When there's no end in sight. You're pursuing something, you're trying to fix something, and the end is not coming. You know, David running from Paul, and it feels like it never ends. And Paul dealing with all kinds of trouble and what have you. Sometimes responsibility, just too big responsibility, too big burden. You know, like Moses, when he is called to take people out of Egypt, out of the slavery, you know, it seems like it's just too much to ask. And later on, we can see that burden on him, and God punished the people for being nasty to Moses. You know, he was a humble man, but you know, sometimes the burden was very, very high. Sometimes it could be fear and danger, just overwhelming, and it feels like you can do that. Another thing is just weakness or depression because of old age. When you're weak and you don't have the strength, and sometimes it's just a composition of all those things together. All right. Now, what is the remedy? All right. That's why, you know, I don't want to just end with this. What is the remedy? You guys good there? All right. Now, I'll tell you this. I believe that sometimes something like this, depression and despair, is actually good for your soul. And I think maybe that's actually sort of a self-cure. Let's say if you have a person that chases abundance and chases fame and glory and money and all this stuff, and he gets depressed, maybe that's a sort of a self-cure to kind of help you. You need to get out of there. This is not a good path. And that makes you, you have abundance of things on the surface, but then you're empty inside. And it leads you to seek some deeper. And a lot of people that have suffered this, they came up with the great stuff in terms of, let's say, art. You know, you hear about people being imprisoned in, let's say, gulag somewhere, you know, and then like Tolstoy or something. And Tolstoy was not necessarily a great character, all right? But because of this, because of his terrible suffering, you know, he came up with a great masterpiece, all right? Whatever. So sometimes the things like this, you know what is good for your soul? Sadness is good for you. Sadness is good. Sadness we don't like to have, but sadness is good for your heart. You know, hurt, when you're hurt, and when you're mourning, that's actually good for your heart too. That is good. Cry and loss and sometimes fasting and ashes and lack of things and poverty sometimes can be a good thing for us. And I'm not saying that we should necessarily pursue them, but if they come, we should be thankful in some ways. Look what it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 7. Ecclesiastes 7. A good name is better than precious ointment. Precious ointment is abundance, isn't it? Prosperity. You know, but what is better than precious ointment, than perfume and all these things? A good guy, good name, man of integrity, that's a good name. And the day of death than the day of one's birth, the Bible says. The day when you die is better than the when you're born. And it's a provocative statement, but it's the Bible, all right? Must be right. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men. It's good to face death while you're still alive and see the funeral and see the mourning faces and see the disaster. Go to the hospital, see how people die. It is actually good for you. Sorrow is better than laughter. The Bible tells us sorrow is better than laughter. Laughter does certain things that are positive. Sometimes laughter actually can help healing, because actually with laughter you can release endorphins, that's known. And that can actually help a little bit. But you know what? The kind of laughter with people, just jokes and everything like that, that leads to emptiness. Have you ever got to a point where you're joking around, and it just became worse and worse? And he started to be assaulting one another, insulting maybe, And so how often you go and listen to some comedian, and maybe it can be funny at first, but then it's like, it's just empty. It's vanity. The laughter for the sake of laughter. Actually, sorrow is better than laughter. For by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better. Sadness makes your heart better. And when we went through these different people like Elijah and Job and Job's wife and David and Joseph, and you know what happened with them? They went through some dark valleys, but they became better people. It made them better. It's kind of something that was not good out of their life. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the fools is at the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise. That's another thing we don't like to hear. When somebody criticizes you, when somebody gives you a mirror and tells you, you thought it was so good, actually it's not. And we live in a world where everything needs to be positive, and we only want to be, you don't want to insult somebody, you don't want to offend anybody, but that is not good. We are making ourselves worse. Let us embrace the reality of who we are and where we're going, that we are just the grass. We are here today. You think it's a great something, you're going to be gone in no time. You're not that important. And you're not that pretty. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For the crackling of thorns, and as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This is vanity. This is vanity. Are you ever disappointed with yourself? You have an issue that keeps coming up, and you feel you already conquer it, and then it reappears again. Does it make you upset sometimes? First time you see it, you may still have hopes, I'm gonna fix it. But when it keeps coming, and after decades you still have it there, you may come to a day when you think, oh, I hate it. I hate it. Why am I not somebody else? Whatever. Look, we all struggle with it. We have tendencies that keep coming back, they keep reappearing, and I wish they were gone, but they're not coming away. We go through certain cycles. We have times where we feel like everything is good now, and then we go right there to the same valley we were before. And the Bible speaks about it. Ecclesiastes again. Solomon speaks about all these different cycles. For example, what profit has a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? This is chapter 1, verse 2. Now 4. One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. That's a cycle. Sun also arises, and then sun goes down. And hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about to the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers unto the seas, yet the sea is not full. That's a cycle. Rivers go down, goes back up, and start again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The things that has been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. That's a cycle. That's a picture of cycle. And we may go through highs and we go through lows. Right? And that's obviously depressive in itself, that thought. Because we would like to just fix things and be done with it. And then it just comes back. It's like this never-ending fight with gophers or mice or ants or whatever people have. You think you got them, but they just never go away. That's like your life. Your sin bubbles up once in a while and surprises you and makes you humble. Makes you realize that you're not such a shot. Makes you realize, I think that God allows sin sometimes to kind of come out and tell you, hey, get over your high horse. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, right? Those are wicked sins. When you're lusting after a woman that's not yours and whatever. But the pride of life is also wicked. And you have people, they're so strong and disciplined, they will never do bad things. They don't lust after things. Of course they do, but they may, perhaps a person can be very, very disciplined and he will not touch anything unclean. But then you have a problem with pride. And how do you cure that? And sometimes God cures that by letting you fall into your sin, your little wickedness or something. And then He lifts you up. Now we have cured your pride. How often? It feels like going through a cycle, either through temptations of the flesh to temptation of the pride. And it feels like when the pride comes, that's when you fall. Pride comes before the fall, doesn't it? First, 2 Corinthians chapter 12. 2 Corinthians 12:7. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. And lest I should be exalted above measure, through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me. Now, Paul struggled with something. And there has been speculations. I heard many. What did I have been? But people will not accept that it must have been some kind of temptation, right? Because this is Paul, right? So it's always some kind of health issue. And people speculate it was his eyes. Because in some other scripture, he says, you would have even plucked your own eyes if you could. So people speculated maybe that was the problem. All right. So God, and it could be, whether yes or not, I bet you Saul had a problem with temptations, right? I mean, it's just a man. He sinned. And perhaps he tried to stop it and get rid of that sin out of his life. And you can get rid of certain things out of your life, but the inclination and the tendency is still there, and it keeps coming back up. And so he says, there was given to me a flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. I read here that God said, I'm not going to take it away. I'm not going to take it. It's going to stay there. But you know what? In your weakness, I am strong. And I want you to remember that you have a better thing than victory over your sin. And that is grace. That is the great thing. And of course, that's what the world needs to know. That if you are depressed because of your sin and vanities, then even there God can come and get you out, because grace is there for people. You have people screwed up their life so bad sometimes, and yet at the outset of their life, or at the end of their life, God saved them. Talk about vanity of life. When you talk about grass, growth and then it withered. Maybe you imagine, something that's kind of good. Somebody that does something good in the world. Well, how much more vanity is a person that he just does damage in their life? And yet God, at the end of that person's life, like let's say the thief on the cross, He takes him and saves him. Right at the last hour. So look, sometimes I indeed hate my life. I hate it. And I'm not nihilist. I'm not suicidal, obviously. But I'm not exaggerating. There is days that I hate. All right. And They keep coming back. I hate to put it that way. I'm pretty much sure it's going to come back again, right? Even that thought I hate already. But that's just the way it is. This is the life. And obviously, I don't want to be depressive here. I don't want to be discouraging. I just want to be truthful and to be encouragement, actually, that this may happen. And this probably will happen. You know, I realize that, you know, there's people going around, Christians, they're all the time happy, and because we've been saved and we live in victory. You know what? Great if you feel that way naturally, but don't try to push it on everybody. It's just not real. You know, sometimes we need. Sometimes we will be jumping for joy. At a time, we'll be just sitting and just enjoying the company of other Christians in quietness. And just be, you know, and maybe not much said, not much smile on our face. And that's all right as well. And sometimes people get very disturbed by that. You know, there's somebody, we are having a party, as that person that spoils it, right? Because he's not laughing with us. So then the rest of us will go and try to cure that person. Come on, why don't you be happy? And if it's something that needs to be dealt with, then let's deal with it. But also, let's be gentle and let's cry with those that are crying, right? You know, you're not gonna make a crying, depressed person just going the way by showing him Charlie Chaplin, some kind of funny movie. It makes it even worse. You know, what actually helps if you have a crying person is to go and cry with that person too. That actually helps. This is why I believe when I was depressed, jokes didn't help, music didn't help. You know, some kind of uplifting music didn't help. Ecclesiastes helped. You know, somebody else depressed, I'm listening to him, man of God, depressed, speaking about vanities, that actually soothed the dry surface of my soul, right? All right. I got a few more thoughts, but we'll leave it for later. Let me tell this in closing. God knows how I feel. God is a compassionate God. God allows sometimes for us to go through the valleys like that. He definitely did that to Job. Sometimes we are responsible for it. We have done it because we have fooled around with sin. We have chased vanities, and now we have it, but we're empty. You have people that, you know, you guys did the Czech movie, the Byl jednou jeden král, you know, the Sůl nad zlato. That lady that plays Maruška there, she was so pretty and just a picture of, you know, maybe purity and loveliness and so on. Well, that lady, the real person, she started a career as an actor. And she fooled around with some student out of Bulgaria and became pregnant by him. But then the guy chased his career and he didn't want to kind of hang out. So he went back and chased his career, left her with the child. Now that was a problem for her because she wanted to have career too. So she took this daughter and she gave it to her parents. So that she can actually start her career. And then when the girl was 6 years old, she took her back and tried to raise her. But that relationship was broken. And she always missed her grandparents because she liked it there. And she hated it. And she eventually hated her mother. She left. They had like 6 kids. She married some kind of weird guy. And she never reconciled with her mother. You know, she had only one daughter, and the one daughter would not be around her. And obviously that's not nice, you know, but you, lady, you know, you chased career. You got all you wanted. And she said many times, you know, I wish I took different choices when I was young. Vanity, depressed, sad end. I want us to think about this. And I want us to think wisely, what do you do with your life? That's for the area where you can be depressed because of your doing. Don't chase vanity. Don't chase fame. Don't chase money. Don't be careful. You know, what do you do with your sin in your life? You allow it to blossom. It will make you miserable. And then when it comes to things that are not your doings, when you are persecuted, I kind of skipped through a lot of things here. Maybe we can talk about it later. When that happens, I want you to know that God cares. And He perhaps will will do some change in your life through these difficult times and make your soul different. Make it deeper. There will always be friends around you. They will be like Joel Osteen, right? Come on, but again, I think depression is actually good. So dump it, and enjoy, and not enjoy perhaps, but take every dose of it and let it transform your heart. I'm not saying completely new thing for those of you that are older, right? That suffering actually makes you different, right? Makes you a little bit deeper person. So you're not failure, by the way. I mean, you are failure. Do you think God is looking? Sometimes people have committed sin and they screwed up things and they messed up and they're not very. You think God looks back and he say, "Oh, he's such a disappointment," or "She's such a disappointment." I saved her. I put so much into her or into him, and look, he's falling into sin again. Didn't God die for our sins that were past, but also the sins that were in the future? God is not surprised by your sins and by your tendencies, right? God knows. And so we need to give Him thanks and glory and trust Him that He can lead us even from the despair that we got ourselves into because of our sin and because of our temptations and so on. We know the Psalm 23, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He says, He restored my soul. He restored my soul. And your soul may be corrupted, may be in trouble, but He will restore it. Even if you got where you got because of your sin and because of your chasing vanities. He leadeth me to the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me, Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. The comfort comes from... what is the staff for? The staff for maybe check things, if it's a good ground so that we can pass. What is it else for? To a little bit hit, right? That's what staff does too, right? I mean, all kinds of things. And you know what? That creates comfort. So if God beats us a little bit, if He gives us a little bit of a fruit of our own chasing vanities, then that makes us comfortable. That comforts us. And then we can say, Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. And that sounds like a prosperity that does not make you desperate. So the prosperity that the world offers, chasing fame and money and all that stuff, and pleasures and all these things, even at the cost of sin, that actually leads to emptiness. But God is abundant God. He does give us abundance, and forget about material things. He will give us abundance. He will make us rich. And when that happens like that, it is the opposite of a hole. It is very fulfilling, and you kind of rest and enjoy it. Right? Solomon's conclusion in closing. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Let us be fearing the Lord. And this is in the context of people chasing vanity. And He tells young people in particular, if you're a young man, all right, do all your things, chase your ambitions, but just know that God will bring you to judgment. That's the conclusion. Fear God and keep His commandments. And I will end with that. I hope I was not too dark today. I just want to acknowledge darkness that is there, and it happens in our lives. And I want us to chase the real fulfillment and be aware of the hole, the empty hole, the vanities that all of us probably have chased here and there. And as a result, we ended up with junk. All right, but God can still obviously make some changes and restore certain things, and that's what we need to put our attention to. Amen. Amen. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank You for your Bible is so truth, and it doesn't sugarcoat things. It tells us the things the way they are, and I thank you that we may know the truth, and that we can see the reality of human condition and what it leads to, and sometimes it leads to a point where we just hate our life. And what a terrible place to be. And yet it can actually do us some good. And so, Lord, I pray that we would, first of all, be wise and not chase vanities. Make the right choices. Perhaps they're harder choices, but for future. And not chase something that actually will just evaporate and then leave us there empty, alone. And Lord, I pray that wherever we messed up, wherever we did go wrong way, or even if it was not because of our wrongdoing, I ask that you will teach us to rely on you and seek and just trust you. Like Job, even though that problem didn't go away right away, he put his trust in you and just waited even in agony. And Lord, you went certainly through agony. Certainly we can suffer some agony. But Lord, when we do, I ask that you would lighten the burden by the fact that we know that you care, and by your tremendous love and patience with us. In Jesus' name, amen.